Hello, I'm David Freeman with Is That Really in the Bible? The word apostasy means a conscious abandonment of allegiance or duty. In other words, the abandonment of our duty toward authority or our duty toward God is actually what the word apostasy means. Now, very early in the history of the church made the decision to abandon its duty or allegiance toward God, or to abandon its duty towards authority. And so what I want to talk about with this series is the apostate church. And it's going to be a number of series, so be sure and watch each one, because I'm going to touch on different subjects as we go along and discuss this apostasy that has occurred in the churches that dot our land. Now, I think you're familiar with the fact that the churches that dot our land today do not remotely resemble the church that Jesus built. I mean, if you could somehow go back in time and actually see or walk in the days that Jesus walked, you would be amazed. You would say, well, I don't even see the resemblance of what is going on today. For example, Jesus Christ was a Jew. He kept the seventh-day Sabbath. Jesus never went to church on a Sunday on the first work day of the week. Jesus never celebrated a Christmas or an Easter or Halloween celebration or April Fool's Day or any of those other days. He never celebrated. He kept the annual holy days, found the Feast of Jehovah. That's what they're referred to in the Bible. These are the Feast of Jehovah. He kept the annual feast days. So what we've got to understand is that the churches today do not remotely resemble the church that Jesus Christ built. Now, why is that? Shouldn't that be of some concern to people? That as we look around at the churches that dot our land, and then we look at the original church, we look at the Bible, the church that Jesus built, and we realize, man, something is missing here. There's not even a connection here. Jesus did not teach that people go to heaven when they die. In fact, Jesus said no man has ascended to heaven. Jesus preached the resurrection from the dead. So, Jesus taught, think not that I've come to destroy the law. Don't even let it enter your pea-brain mind that I have come to destroy the law. Guess what everybody thinks? Guess what most religious people think? That he came to destroy the law. Jesus said no man has ascended to heaven. Guess where everybody thinks you go when you die? Most religious people? Yeah, heaven. Jesus said he was Lord of the Sabbath day. Guess what day nearly every Christian thinks he's Lord of? Yeah, you guessed it, Sunday, the first work day of the week. Now, I want you to understand something. You were born into a ready-made world of religion. You didn't make this stuff up. You were born in it. You had no control over it. You didn't make it up. You didn't say, hey, I think it would be really cool if we worship for 1 hour on the first work day of the week, then light out of church and light up a cigarette and go back to work and do our own things and we'll touch bases with the Lord. You didn't make that up. No, your world of churchianity made that up for you. You did not make it up. You didn't make this stuff. You didn't say, hey, I think we ought to worship Jesus' birthday like this. We ought to, swap gifts and put a tree up and deck it out with gold and silver and fasten it to the floor so it doesn't move, And, we ought to do it. And we ought to, we'll say it's all about Jesus. Yeah, that's it. That's good. We'll say it's Christ's Mass or Christmas or Jesus was born on this day. You didn't make this stuff up. You were born into a world of ready-made religion. And one of the things that it dawned on me is that it's not an issue of becoming an apostate church. That's really not the issue, because you can't fall away unless you first stood on your 2 feet. No, it's not an issue of becoming an apostate church. The real issue is being born into an apostate church. Let me tell you something. It's harder to unlearn. You know, when it comes to religious deception, it's harder to unlearn than it is to learn something, you know, just new right off the bat. Once you have learned something, once you have been programmed, once you have been spoon-fed churchianity, once you come into the world and a hole is drilled in your head and someone pops a funnel in there and they pour in churchianity, it will be much harder to unlearn that stuff. Are you with me on that? It's going to be much harder to unlearn that. So, the apostate church, apostasy, a conscious abandonment of allegiance or duty toward God. Next time, I'll talk about why Christianity has not worked.
Is that really in the Bible? What you think is in the Bible is not.